Hello everyone, welcome to this DNA session, and in today's session we are going to cover these important topics that have come in today's Indian Express and the Hindu, which are very relevant from your prelims exam perspective. Now as prelims is getting nearer, our focus also in the DNA has shifted from mains to prelims. However, wherever relevant, I will definitely guide you that okay, this issue is also very relevant from a mains perspective. So the issues that we are going to cover today, just a gist of that, the opposition MPs notice to speaker for removal of the Madras High Court judge, that is in news. There was an article today in the Indian Express page number 11 about India's eating habit and how unhealthy foods are cheaper and more accessible for Indians, and what are the health impact of unhealthy eating for India. Then on page 13, Interpol issues blue corner notice against the Luthra brothers after that fire in the Goa nightclub. The Luthra brothers are absconding and Interpol has issued a blue corner notice. So we will understand blue corner notice, Interpol, what is their role, mandate, etc. On page number 16, we have Israel to open Jordan border crossing from for passage of aids and goods. It's a very important point between Israel and Jordan, and that region is very important from a mapping perspective in UPSC. So we will cover this topic because for mapping also. Now in Indian Express we also have why India is not dumping rice in the US as Trump says. So recently the US president has accused India of dumping rice in the United States, and he has also warned India that okay, he will impose tariffs on India's rice imports in US. In the Hindu, we have charting an agenda on the right to health. So this is a very important article from a social justice point of view for your paper 2, and from a prelims point of view also, because right to health is implicit under Article 21 of the Constitution. A deep cleaning of India's electoral rolls. This article featured in the Hindu, page 9. So as the SIR is going on, there are repeated and intensive debates and articles coming out. The hearing is going on in the Supreme Court, and since the issue has snowballed to such an extent, you can anticipate this topic in your prelims, and we are going to cover this topic from a prelims perspective also. So let us move to the first topic. Okay, so let us proceed with the first topic. So what is the first topic? Impeachment of the High Court judge. So what is the news today? So what is the context of the news? Opposition MPs have submitted a notice for the removal of the Madras High Court judge after his order permitting lighting of a lamp at a religiously contested site triggered a political and a constitutional debate on judicial conduct. So the Madras High Court judge that we are talking about, Justice G.R. Swaminathan, he had ordered the lighting of a lamp at a religiously contested place, a place which is contested by both the Hindus and the Muslims. There is a dargah there, and that is the entire point of contestation. Now, why this topic is very important? Recently, we have seen the issue of Justice Yashwant Verma. We have seen the issue of Justice Shekhar Yadav. In both the cases, the opposition had moved the impeachment motion, and if you look at UPSC PYQs also, it is a very prominent issue of area of questioning for UPSC. So you can just pause the video and try and answer this question. So this will be a good exercise for your prelims exams practice also. So let us move to the topic, right? So what is the controversial order here? So as I was explaining, so Justice G.R. Swaminathan of the Madras High Court has allowed lighting of the Kartigai Deepam lamp atop disputed stone pillar on the Thirupamkundram hill, which is claimed both by Hindu temple authorities and the nearby Dargah Muslim shrines. So this has led to a political fallout, right? And this order basically has led to a political legal controversy in Tamil Nadu. Elections are very near there. So 107 MPs from the opposition India bloc have signed a petition seeking the judge's removal. So that is the news. So the removal procedure that we are going to discuss today the MPs have invoked here the Judges Inquiry Act of 1968, which allows for a motion to remove a judge if supported by at least 100 Lok Sabha MPs and the 50 are Rajya Sabha MPs. So to take up such a motion, we need this many number of signatories, right? So let us just understand what is the constitutional provision with respect to the removal of judges. What does the constitution say? And what is the procedure listed under the Judges Inquiry Act of 1968. So what is the constitutional basis of impeachment? So Article 124 is central to our discussion here. So we are going to keep in mind Article 124, which deals with all the matters of the Supreme Court judges appointment, and it also contains Article 124 clause 4 to be precise. So if you read Article 124 clause 4, so Article 124 clause 4, it lays down that a judge of the Supreme Court, and in case of a High Court judge, this pertains to judge of a Supreme Court, and in case of High Court judge, we have Article 218, right? So he can be removed only on the grounds of proven misbehavior and incapacity. So there are only two grounds that the Constitution Article 124 lists down, and that applies to Article 218 for a High Court judge also, that is a proven misbehavior and incapacity, right? So these are the only two grounds, right? Now this this removal, basically as per Article 124, it requires 2/3 of the members present and voting in each house of the parliament. So the removal process would require, I am just discussing what is the numerical strength that you regard, 2/3 of the members present and voting, right? And also a majority of total membership of each house. So the threshold for removal of judge, both of a Supreme Court or a High Court, has been kept very high, keeping in mind that judiciary as an institution, an independent judiciary is central to our democracy, right? So that threshold is very high, and after that what happens? Both the houses, they pass the address seeking, if such a motion has been brought, if it has passed in the house, then the President will issue the removal order. So that is a brief summary of it. Let us move to the Judges Inquiry Act and understand how this happens under the Judges Inquiry Act, right? So moving on to the next slide, Judges Inquiry Act of 1968, right? So what does the Judges Inquiry Act of 1968 say? So the Judges Inquiry Act of 1968, it basically lists down a very detailed procedure for impeachment of a judge, right? Now if you look at section 3 of the Judges Inquiry Act, it speaks of a motion of impeachment is to be taken up if it is moved by not less than 100 members of the Lok Sabha and 50 MPs of the Rajya Sabha, right? So section 3 of the Judges Inquiry Act, it talks about this criteria, that a removal motion can be introduced in Lok Sabha with 100 MPs signature and in Rajya Sabha with 50 MPs, right? After such a motion has been taken up, it goes to the speaker or chairman, right? So it is completely in the discretion of the speaker or the chairman that he may act on the motion. There is no timeline on it. He may even refuse to do so. So the speaker or chairman, the Constitution does not provide for any timeline, and it is in his discretion to act upon it. He may accept the motion, right, and he may refuse to do so. Now if such a motion is admitted, a 3-member committee of inquiry is to be constituted. So if the speaker or chairman also admits such a motion, a 3-member committee is constituted, which consists of a sitting judge of Supreme Court, a Chief Justice of High Court, and a distinguished jurist, right. So this committee is created after that, and once this committee is created, what is the role and mandate of the committee? The committee examines charges and submits a report, right. So the committee will frame charges, it will examine, it will collect evidence, and the committee may also order any medical tests if incapacity is alleged. So I just, in the previous slide only I was discussing that there are two grounds: proven misbehavior and incapacity. So if incapacity is alleged on the part of the judge, then the committee may order a medical test also, right. Now this committee, it has the power to regulate its own procedure. So this you should keep in mind, that it can regulate its own procedure, it can call for evidence and cross-examine witnesses, right. Now after this committee has submitted the report will go to the the speaker or the chairman, and if the judge is not guilty as per the report, the proceedings end there. But if the report finds the judge to be guilty, the house in which the motion was introduced, it votes on that motion, and then that motion is repeated in the other house, and then finally the final step is that the president gives assent for the removal, right. And here, as I discussed in the last slide, special majority, that is the 2/3 members of present and voting, and 50% of the total strength of the house is required for such a motion to be approved in either house of the parliament. So this is the entire process that has been highlighted in the Judges Inquiry Act. It is very important from an exam point of view, from your prelims point of view. Now one of the other things that has been alleged, something very important in this particular piece of news is that the entire impeachment motion rests on judicial conduct which is illegal, and it was alleged that it is goes against the secular credentials of the institution, right. Now secularism is something that we need to invoke and discuss a little bit here. So moving on to secularism. So why has secularism been invoked by the opposition here, that this act violates secularism? So secularism, very important, because it is a core component of the basic structure doctrine in India, right. Now although the term has secular has been added to our preamble by the 42nd Amendment Act, right. So the 42nd Amendment Act, it basically explicitly amended the constitution and added the word preamble there, but this idea has been implicit in our constitution across the document. If you look at our fundamental rights, right, if you look at fundamental rights, so Article 14, it talks about non-discrimination on the grounds of religion, right. In fact, there should be no discrimination, equality before the law, right. Nobody can be discriminated by the state on any grounds, and definitely one of the aspect is religion, right. Discrimination can be on the basis of caste, creed, religion, sex, etc. But Article 14 is definitely one of the secular credentials under the Indian Constitution. Similarly, Article 15 explicitly talks about non-discrimination on the grounds of religion, right. Similarly, Articles 25 to 28, they also regulate the freedom of religion, and they try to balance it with the state's authority for religious reform, right. So if you look at the fundamental rights, particularly Article 14, 15, 16, 25 to 28, what I was talking about, the state is permitted to regulate the secular activities associated with religion, that is Article 25 clause 2, right. Similarly, under Article 28, you will find that no religious institution, instruction can be done in a state funded institution, so that is Article 28, right. So secularism is a part of core part of the basic structure. So just from a prelims perspective, we will understand the judicial evolution of secularism as a core component of basic structure. The first judgment that talked about secularism as a inherent component of the basic structure doctrine, it was Keshwanand Bharti. So in 1973, when the Constitution bench gave the landmark basic structure judgment in the Keshwanand Bharti, it listed down several elements that constitute basic structure of the Constitution, and one of the aspects was secularism. But enough emphasis was not given to this word secularism, and therefore another landmark judgment that happened was S.R. Bommai versus Union of India. S.R. Bommai versus Union of India. It is a 1994 judgment, and it categorically stated that secularism is a binding constitutional principle and not a political slogan, and the state must maintain religious neutrality. Right. So this judgment categorically and very explicitly talked about secularism as a part of basic structure, that this judgment inherently strengthened this core feature amongst the other basic structure features. Then there is another important judgment, R.C. Podial versus Union of India. R.C. Podial versus Union of India. So R.C. Podial versus Union of India, in this particular case, the Supreme Court held that religious and cultural pluralism is intrinsic to India's secular character, and secularism in Indian context, it does not mean negation of religious identity, but it is a guarantee against religious domination. Right. So these are some of the judgments that have, through which secularism has evolved as a concept, and it had the way, these judgments have further strengthened the idea of secularism as a core component of the basic structure. So you have to keep these in mind. Let us move to the next topic. So let us move to the next topic of the day. So there was an article in the Indian Express, what Indians eat and how being unhealthy is easier and cheaper. So this article highlights the paradox of how India's is witnessing per capita GDP increase. Our GDP has per capita GDP has also doubled since 1990s, and despite that our eating habits are such that the burden of non-communicable diseases is increasing. So rather than moving towards healthy food, what India today prefers is more of processed unhealthy food, which is basically our diet is very rich in carbohydrates, and how it is leading to burden of diseases in Indian society, that we will just look. And from a prelims perspective, if you remember the focus that our Prime Minister has had in recent past on health, he has launched Fit India movement, and there have been many initiatives by the government where the government has basically talked about the whole of society and the whole of government approach, where the government institutions shouldn't be working under silos, and also a whole of society where different stakeholders in the society, the civil society, the private sector, etc., everyone should work together. And this approach has been the motto of this government to tackle major problems like health crisis. Recent times our Prime Minister has also requested Indians to cut down on oil consumption. Right. So this is very important topic from a prelims perspective. You can expect a question on some of the schemes that the government has launched. So we will not just understand this article, but we'll also link with the government initiatives. Okay. So coming to the context, so the new data from India's latest household consumption survey, it shows that there is a dietary shift towards unhealthy, ultra processed and nutrient poor food, as affordability and access constraints make balanced nutrition harder for most Indians. So unhealthy food is more accessible, more available to the Indians compared to healthy cereals and sources of protein. Let us move to the next slide. So we are witnessing, the article basically talks about this dietary shift. The new household consumption survey, expenditure survey, it shows that move towards unhealthy nutrient poor foods, which includes ultra processed foods and those foods that are not nutritionally very balanced, right? So what are the key findings from the HCES survey of 2022-23? So the household consumption expenditure survey, it presents a very important, it is very important because since the last 20-23 years, it captures the information on monthly per capita expenditure on foods, consumables and the durable goods that is being consumed by the Indians. So what are the key findings from this round of HCES 2022-2023? So we have this report basically goes on to this article also talks about these three major findings of the HCES. So what are the three major findings? First is real term food expenditure has increased, right? So we are witnessing that if you look at the expenditure on food, that is very much economically logical also, since the per capita income is increasing, the real term food expenditure is also increasing. Also, the spending on protein rich foods such as egg, dairy, meat, fruits and vegetables has gone up. So as the purchasing power of the economy is increasing, of the people is increasing, they are moving towards, from coarse grains, they are moving towards protein, good sources of protein, which is logical and plausible. It happens in every economy. Spending on cereals, however, has declined, but the consumption remains high. So the spending on cereals, that in itself, that spending component has declined, but still India is consuming a lot of cereals, right? So these are some of the findings. Now, what are the concerns that this report has highlighted? So coming to the concerns, the report has highlighted various concerns. The first is obesity and metabolic disorders are rising. So as I was talking about, the Prime Minister's objective towards so many health interventions in recent past, because obesity and metabolic disorders such as diabetes, hypertension, etc., these are rising in India, predominantly because of our source of energy. So from food is basically it comes from carbohydrates. Our dietary consumption of protein and fibers is very less compared to the advanced countries, and that is leading to more of obesity and more of metabolic disorders in the society, right? So if you look at the recent ICMR India B dietary study, approximately 62% of the energy intake. So we are talking about the ICMR India B study. So this basically goes on to highlight that 62% of energy intake comes from low quality carbohydrates, that is refined cereals and sugar. So that is the first observation given by the author in this particular article. And if you look at that, while the data on cereals, if you look at the numbers on per capita incomes, in the recent past it has increased exponentially over the last 2 decades. And if you look at the spending on cereals post 1999, it has roughly halved. So although our consumption of cereals is predominantly high, right, but that spending component is coming down and down, and 62% of our energy from food, it comes from refined cereals and sugar, right? We are no longer consuming coarse grains like millet and other nutrition dense sources of carbohydrate, complex carbohydrates, right? So that is a problem. Also, the top 5% in rural India, they spend 8 times more on food rather than the bottom 5%. So although the Food Security Act did try to promote cereals amongst the rural India, but what the article highlights here is that the top 5% in rural India, it is spending 8 times more on food than the bottom 5%. So there is an issue of inequity in food spending, right? also, if you look at the food consumption, the processed food consumption, so since 1999, the processed food consumption has increased by 352% in rural and 222% in urban areas. So this is paradoxical, because rural India is somewhere we see that more of people are rooted and they eat things that they grow. But if you look at the data, it suggests that in rural India, the processed foods are actually more in demand compared to the urban areas. And look at the increment that it has seen in recent past. Right. Now, all of that is definitely has made processed foods, they have made it as an essential commodity. No longer it is a necessity for Indians. So no, earlier 1-2 decade back, eating Maggi or some processed food, it used to be occasional, but now it has become a daily necessity rather than a luxury, right? So we also see a reduced price elasticity for these processed foods. When you go to the market and you buy them, you will find that these processed foods, they come cheaper compared to the healthy nutritious food. So that is also a paradox. Now, what is the impact on health? So if you are looking at the impact on health, so as per the Global Burden of Diseases Report 2023, India has witnessed an exponential rise in non-communicable diseases, and the largest the number of years lost we can see is amongst the developing countries. India is one of the leading countries where the largest number of years lost is projected, and it will only increase from the current 50 million to 72 million by 2050, right? If you look at ICMR data, 57% of India's disease burden is due to our unhealthy diets, and this is leading to an increase in different kinds of non-communicable diseases. There has been a 229% increase in type 2 diabetes, 148% increase in cancer, and 40% in respiratory diseases. And these are all linked to unhealthy food that we are consuming. Right. Let us move to the next slide. Okay. So what are the factors that are triggering, that are leading to the rise of obesity in India? So we discussed some of the factors. We will just summarize some more. High calorie, low nutrient diets, increased consumption of refined carbohydrates and saturated fats, easy access to processed foods. So the widespread availability of packaged ready to eat meals, as as we are transitioning towards an advanced economy, our dietary preferences also, because of the work life that Indians currently are having, they are also, like the West, moving towards ready to eat meals which are processed and packaged. Growing culture of eating out. So there is a growing culture of eating out. People no longer want to prepare things from the scratch in their kitchen post the day's work. Majority of the people want to go to a restaurant and enjoy their meal, right? So that is there. Use of genetically modified crops, altered food composition, it impacts metabolism and it leads to weight gain. So GM crops is also a reason. Physical inactivity. So there is a declining engagement as far as sports, exercise and outdoor activities are concerned amongst Indians. And because of the long hours of sitting at work, excessive screen time and the minimal movement in daily routines, the sedentary lifestyle, it is also triggering obesity in the Indian public. Let us move to the next slide. Yeah. So now we will discuss some of the government intention, noble intention of this government towards taking charge of obesity in the Indian population. So the government has launched, as I stated earlier, a whole, the approach of this government is a whole of society and a whole of government approach. The government has launched various intervention schemes, and the objective of these schemes is that the government should not the different departments of the government should not work in silos. There should be proper coordination. Now, Amongst those schemes, some of the schemes that are very relevant and the policy interventions which are relevant from obesity perspective, we are going to discuss here. So the Government of India's strategic framework for obesity prevention, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So we have the National Program for Prevention and Control of NCDs, right? So the National Program for Prevention and Control of the NCDs. So what are the key functions? What is this National Health Mission? What does it aim? How does it aim to reduce NCD burden? So the focus here is on health promotion through behavior change, engaging in communities, civil society, media. The focus is on early diagnosis, screening, follow-up across all levels of health care, capacity building of healthcare providers for prevention, treatment, rehabilitation, right? Strengthening supply chain for essential drugs, diagnostics, equipment, logistics, and uniform ICT based monitoring, supervision, evaluation, and research, right? So this mission basically takes care of how you are going to induce behavioral change in the public, proper screening, right, and other kinds of interventions to ensure that the burden of non-communicable diseases does not affect the Indian population. Let us move to the next slides. Also, we have under the Ministry of Ayush, we have the Government of India's strategic framework for obesity. We have Ministry of Ayush. So the Ayush Ministry, it is promoting traditional and holistic interventions for lifestyle disorders. So some of the contributions of this ministry is Ayurvedic treatment services at All India Institute of Ayurveda. So we have set up an All India Institute of Ayurveda, right, offering Panchkarm medicines, tailored diet plans, and yoga therapy. More than 45,000 patients with diabetes and metabolic disorders have benefited from this therapy. And the research through various CCRAS, it demonstrates efficacy through of the Dinacharya, Ritucharya, Ahar, and yoga in preventing obesity. We also have the Ayur Swasthya Yojana since 2021-22, which supports public health projects addressing obesity, diabetes, hypertension, and osteoporosis. Right. So there are 11 active projects on lifestyle disorders that is currently undergoing. So this is another intervention by the government in this regard. Let us move to the next. Right. So the Ministry of Women Child Development, Poshan Abhiyan, Poshan 2.0. So Poshan Abhiyan is something that is very important from an exam perspective. So you should definitely cover this in very detail, because one reason, because this is one of those schemes which has ensured interministerial coordination, right? So it was launched in 2018. Poshan Abhiyan, it aims to improve nutrition among children, adolescent girls, pregnant women, and lactating mothers, right? Now if you look at the scheme, it is technology driven monitoring, it is multi-ministerial convergence. So as I stated, it has convergence of various ministries, and in it basically works on Jan Andolan community movement. So it tries to create a community movement for better nutritional outcomes. Its focus is strengthening Anganwadi services and adolescent health care through Mission Shaksham Anganwadi, Poshan 2.0 2021, encouraging dietary and diversity ways, millet consumption, promotion of millet consumption. The government has taken it as a mission to promote millets again in Indian population. Food fortification, integrating Ayush based wellness practices. So these are some of the key initiatives taken up under the Poshan Abhiyan to improve nutritional outcomes of the public, right? Moving on to the next slide. Right. Some of the interventions of the government from the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports perspective to promote physical activity, right, to promote physical activity. So we have Fit India Movement 2019, a nationwide campaign to encourage daily physical activity, which the government has launched. So we have under the Fit India Movement, Fit India School Certification, Fit India Sundays, Cycle Days to promote walking and cycling in cities, community-based fitness events, mass yoga, running clubs, and workplace fitnesses. Khelo India program, again you can see that the Khelo India is also completing 10 years. So very important from exam perspective. So aims to build active generation by expanding access to sports across rural and urban India, provide world class training infrastructure for young athletes. Very important scheme, right? Moving on to the next slide. Right. Some of the interventions by the food regulation side by the FSSAI, the Eat Right India movement, it has launched a holistic food systems initiative which promotes safety, health and sustainable diets. So we have various supply side interventions here, the FOSTAC training for food safety supervisors, hygiene rating for restaurants, caterers, sweet shops, meat vendors, etc. So in recent times you have seen that FSSAI has come down heavily on restaurants which are not operating with hygienic in a particular hygienic environment. So that is one under the Eat Right India movement. Consumer awareness through Eat Right Campus and Eat Right School, DART book for simple household adulteration detection, magic box for school level food testing, etc. So these are some of the interventions. Now demand side intervention, consumer awareness through Eat Right Campus and Eat Right School, food fortification of staples to combat micronutrient deficiencies, right? So these are some of the demand side interventions by the FSSAI, right? So moving on to the next slide, and the last one in this regard. There are more, but these are some of the major ones. So the RUCO initiative, repurpose used cooking oil. So stops use of unsafe frying oil by enforcing 25% TPC, total polar compounds limit, right? So our objective is that reuse of cooking oil should be avoided, which is a common practice in our Indian households. So how we are doing? We are enforcing a 25% TPC, total polar compounds limit, using the education, enforcement and ecosystem model, collecting used oil for biodiesel soap production instead of reuse in food. This overall it reduces the Prime Minister has also asked the public to reduce oil consumption by at least 10%. So this reduces risks of hypertension, atherosclerosis, liver disease and environmental harm, right? So these are some of the important initiatives by the government to control obesity, to control our health. Obesity is linked to various metabolic disorders, right? So this is also a very important topic because it has been going on for quite some time in 2025. You can expect a question in UPSC prelims this year on this topic. Moving on to the next topic. Okay, so moving on to the next topic. So Interpol has issued a blue corner notice. So after this news came in the Indian Express today, the Interpol issues blue collar notice against the Luthra brothers. So after the fire incident that happened in the nightclub in Goa, killing at least 25 people, the Luthra brothers has been absconding, and therefore the Interpol has come into picture. So this piece of news is very important from prelim perspective, not because of the incident that happened, but what is blue corner notice and the role and mandate of Interpol, which will be our objective of investigation and study here, right? So UPSC asks questions on various institutions, so it is very important. So what is the news? Interpol has issued a blue collar notice against the Luthra brothers, owners of the Goa nightclub, gutted in a fatal fire, as authorities investigate negligence, illegal constructions and attempts to evade arrest, right? So let us come to what the news is. So this is what the news is. Blue corner notice has been issued against the two brothers. So let us delve deeper into the topic, right? So blue collar notice issued to trace the Luthra brothers in Thailand. A lookout circular against the accused has also been generated by the local police. Demolition of illegal portions of the another club owned by the Luthras is underway, right? And the Indian authorities are expecting speedy Interpol cooperation, right? So the blue corner notice, it was issued within 48 hours. Normally it takes some time, but in this case it was issued within 48 hours, right? So now coming to the most important part of this news. What is the Interpol, right? Let us understand few things about its history. So what is the full name? It is International Criminal Police Organization. So Interpol is International Criminal Police Organization, right? So what was the or intent and what are its functions to have an Interpol? So Interpol, it basically provides investigative support, right? And listing down its roles, it provides investigative support, right, and expertise and training for law enforcement worldwide. Expertise and training of law enforcement worldwide, and basically it focuses on three major areas of transnational crime. So the objective is on transnational crimes, and within that it focuses on three major areas, that is terrorism, cybercrime and organized crime, right? The focus is on, amongst the various transnational crime, the focus is on terrorism, cybercrime and organized crime, right? But because of the broad mandate of the Interpol, it also coordinates in other areas like human trafficking, drug trafficking, environmental crimes, etc., etc. So other crimes also come, but the broader mandate is for transnational crimes linking to terrorism, cybercrime and organized crime. It was established in 1923 as International Criminal Police Commission. It was renamed later as Interpol in 1956. What is the motto of the institution? Connecting police for a safer world, right? So it basically facilitates international police cooperation against crime. That is the objective of Interpol. It helps in tracking of criminals across borders by issuing various types of notices. So in this particular case, we came across the blue corner notice, so we will understand, right? It helps support member countries in criminal investigation, but remember this, it does not have the power of arrest, right? So Interpol, the most important highlight, it does not have power of arrest, right? So that is something that you have to keep in mind. It can come as an option in your UPSC prelims. Now headquarters Lyon, France, right? Member countries 195 as of 2024. India is a member. Official languages English, French, Spanish, Arabic, etc. Right. So these are some background information about Interpol. Remember that it does not have power of arrest, right? Now what is the organizational structure of Interpol? So we have a General Assembly. For any international institution, you should remember the organizational structure. So we have the General Assembly, which is the supreme governing body. It meets annually. One vote is for every member per member country. We have an executive committee elected by General Assembly, oversees implementation of decisions. We have a General Secretariat. It handles day-to-day operations. It is based out in Lyon. We have the National Central Bureaus, NCBs, Interpol offices in each member country. India's NCB is under CBI. Right. So why this is important? Because it is the National Central Bureaus which will coordinate with the General Secretariat to get these notices issued. And in the Interpol's NCB, the National Central Bureau in India is under the CBI New Delhi. Right. So these are some factual information that you need to remember with regards to the organizational structure of Interpol. Let us move to the next slide here. Right. Okay. So this let us understand notices, the notice system. So Interpol it issues various kinds of color coded notices to help the country's police force share important crime related data across the borders. So these color coded notices, they help share crime related information across borders. So the notices are issued by Interpol's General Secretariat. So we just saw in the last slide we saw the organizational structure. So these notices are issued by the General Secretariat, right, upon request from the National Central Bureau of the member country. So in India, if India has to issue request for notice, then the NCB in India is under the CBI, with the CBI. So that NCB will request the General Secretariat of Interpol. In this particular case, the blue corner notice was issued. That is how it is done. So now one more thing about this notice system, the Interpol's notice system is non-binding and it is a cooperative tool, means it is not legally enforceable in a court of law. Right, it is not a legally binding notice, right, it is a non-binding notice, and basically it is a cooperative tool between the police forces, between our home country and abroad, right. Some notices are for the police only, while some may be for the wider public when public assistance is required, such as in the case of missing person. Right, for example, a yellow notice to locate a missing person, often minors or persons unable to identify himself, right. So in case of a yellow notice, it may be to the wider public, but some notices are specifically to the police, right, because of the nature of the crime, right. And these notices, they do assist but do not authorize arrest, right. Remember the two things about these notices, that they are cooperative tool, not legally binding, right. Second thing, they assist but do not authorize arrest. Assist but don't authorize arrest, right. The local police will act according to the domestic law, right. So that is something that you need to remember about the notices. Other than that, there are various color coded notices. You can look here. Some of the important ones are blue corner notice, like in this particular case is information on a person of interest in criminal investigation, right. So to locate a missing person, right, not a missing person, someone who is absconding, to gather more information on that person's identity, location, activities linked to a particular crime, right. So then in that particular case a blue corner notice is issued. Red notice is something that is interesting, to basically locate a person against whom who is basically wanted for a very heathen crime, and it is based on a valid court order for arrest of that person from the member country, right. So red corner notice, we have green notice, yellow notice, black notice, orange notice. You don't need to remember all these notices, but you should know what is the legal backing of these notices, what is the mandate of Interpol. It does not have the power to arrest, what is the scope and limitations of these notices. So that is it for this particular news. Let us move to the next topic. Okay, moving on to the next topic. So Israel has opened the Allenby border crossing with Jordan, which basically connects Israel and Jordan. On the Jordanian side, it is called the King Hussein's Bridge. So it has opened that crossing to allow for humanitarian aids and goods to come into Gaza with the ongoing Gaza crisis, the shortage of food there for people. Israel has reopened this crossing, and this is significant from the perspective, this region, entire region is very significant from the perspective of mapping in UPSC prelims. If you go through PYQs, you will see a lot, many questions have come focusing on mapping of this region. So our focus on this particular news item will be from a mapping perspective, and also we will read a little bit about UNICEF, because the news also featured things about UNICEF. UNICEF has highlighted that the children in Gaza are suffering from malnutrition because of lack of proper food and nutrition there, right? So let us come to this topic from a UPSC's perspective, right? So Israel has decided to open the the Al Hussein Allenby Bridge, the King Hussein Bridge on the Jordanian side, right? For passage of aid. At least 376 Palestinian children have died since the opening of the conflict that started. The bridge was closed since the crisis, into 2024. A major security lapse that killed 2 Israeli soldiers there. After that, the Israeli government decided to close this passage with Jordan, and this is the only point through which the Palestinian can move into Jordan. So it is a very significant passage. We will cover this in the broader, mapping exercise. Now, so this is the news about the Allenby crossing, which as already I stated that it is also called the King Hussein Bridge on the Jordanian side. Now coming to this particular region, the mapping of this particular region. Now the key borders and features of Israel, if you look at Israel, right, this map, very important from a prelims perspective. In north we have Lebanon and we have Syria, which basically connects through the Golan Heights. You can see Golan Heights is somewhere here, right, and Lake Tiberias is somewhere here, right. On the eastern side, again, if you look at the eastern side, we have Jordan, majorly Jordan. On the east side of Israel, we have majorly Jordan, right. It is separated by this particular river, that is the Jordan River. The Jordan River is not marked here, but there is a river parallelly this. It is the Jordan River, which basically borders the West Bank. So that is very important on the eastern side. On the southwest, we have Egypt. On the southwest of Israel, we have Egypt, and it connects via the Sinai Peninsula, right, and we also have the Gulf of Aqaba here. You can see somewhere down here the Gulf of Aqaba is there, right. On the western side of Israel, we have Mediterranean Sea. So it completely connects with the Mediterranean Sea. And some of the key territories that is often asked in mapping is West Bank, which is basically east of Israel here. This is Israel, West Bank is here, east of Israel, right, and basically it is west of the Jordan, on this side of the Jordan River, right, west of the Jordan River. We have Gaza Strip, which is the southwest coast, right, here. The southwest coast is the Gaza Strip, very very much in news since the last 2 years, very important. So Gaza Strip connects to Egypt, and it is some important areas, Rafah, Gaza. You should be able to arrange them as per the longitudinal variations, right. So these are some of the important points as far as mapping of this region is concerned, so you should be noting them, right. So north, I discussed Lebanon, Syria, east Jordan separated by Jordanian River, borders with West Bank, southwest Sinai Peninsula, Gulf of Aqaba, right. Moving on to the next slide. So the water body is Mediterranean Sea, Dead Sea, right? Dead Sea is also here. You can see, note the lowest point on earth, Golan Heights, northeastern highlands, etc. Right, West Bank located east of Israel, west of Jordan River. So very important regions for mapping. You should have detailed notes on them, very important from a prelims perspective. Right, let us move to the next slide here. Right, so we were discussing about this King Hussein's bridge or the Allenby bridge. So you can see Israel is here, Jordan is here, Jordan's capital Amman is here, and here you can see there is this Allenby bridge. So it expands the Jordan River connecting the West Bank, Palestine and Jordan. It lies near Jericho in the Israel occupied West Bank and connects to Jordan's capital Amman. It is also called the King Hussein's bridge on the Jordanian side. It is controlled by Israel with Jordanian and Palestinian coordination on logistics. Right. Right. So what is the geopolitical significance of this bridge? So this is the only official border crossing for West Bank Palestinians to exit the wider world via Jordan. That is the first important significance. It is used heavily by Palestinian civilians, aid agencies, and it is used for trade. Strategic for humanitarian access to Gaza and diplomatic pressure in ceasefire talks. It is a very important point as far as whenever ceasefire talks happen, Israel will have its control on this particular bridge, and this basically controls the entire coming of aid in that region. So very important from a geopolitical context. Right, now the UNICEF also, it has reported 9,300 cases of severe acute malnutrition in Gaza in October 2024, and it has noted that the figure is 5 times higher than in February. Right. And since United Nations Children's Fund is the primary agency providing malnutrition treatment in that region, it is very important to cover this from a UPSC prelims perspective. So we will see what is some background information about the United Nations Children's Fund. So it was established in 1946, originally as a United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. It has its headquarters in the New York City of USA. Subsidiary organ of the United Nations General Assembly, right? It is a subsidiary organization of the UN General Assembly. In 1953, it was renamed, right, with the acronym UNICEF, but became a permanent part of the UN system, right? So these are some factual information about UNICEF that you have to keep in mind. So what are the primary functions and activities? So the role of UNICEF is with respect to child protection. It works against child labor, child marriage, violence against children, monitors children's rights violations in conflict zones as happening in Gaza, education, rebuilding schools in post-conflict zones, running non-formal educational programs for children in refugee camps and disaster-affected areas, health and nutrition. It provides vaccines, micronutrients and treatment for severe acute malnutrition in Gaza. As in this particular news, UNICEF is the primary agency treating malnourished children there in the conflict setting, right? It partners with WHO, World Food Program and local NGOs. It provides emergency response, provides humanitarian aid during wars, natural disasters and pandemics, right? So these are some of the important functions and activities of UNICEF, and that is all for this particular news. Let us move to the next topic. Okay, so coming to this next piece of news, it is important from GS3 economy perspective, and UPSC in the past has asked about Washington apples in prelims, right? Recently the President of the United States, it's accused India of dumping rice in US, and it threatened that the only way this could be settled is by increasing tariffs on it. So basically, this dumping issue has come up with respect to India's rice exports to the US. So India rejects allegations of rice dumping in the US, clarifying that its exports mainly consists of high value basmati varieties and small quantities of non-basmati rice that do not distort US markets. So we will look, from a general perspective also, what is India's rice exports in both aromatic and non-aromatic category. We will look at, what are the preferred export destinations, how much India exports to US. All these data very relevant from a prelims perspective, right? So what are the facts about this news? That Donald Trump, that basically India is dumping rice in the US market. This claim is incorrect if you look at the data, and India exports only small quantities of high value premium rice, basically the basmati, to the US, and India is the second exporter. If you look at some of the aromatic varieties that go to the US is Thai jasmine. India is the second exporter, the Indian basmati, right? The facts are that we export very small quantities, premium basmati, and this does not create any market distortion in the United States, right? So US is not a major rice producer or an importer. It exports more rice than it imports. So that is something that if you look, that is the US a major rice exporter? Are we dependent on US's export to India in matters of rice? No, we are the first country as far as rice exports are concerned. And if you look at US data, is it the major rice producer? No, it is not the major rice producer, and neither it is a major rice importer also, right? And if you look at the data of US, it exports more rice than it imports, right? The rice that it imports from India and Thailand, they are high value aromatic varieties like the Thai jasmine, Indian basmati, and it does not import much of that low cost rice, the parboil rice that we are talking about, right? If you look at the data, so India is the world's largest rice producer, I just stated. So we exported around 22.5 million tons of rice in 2024-25, and as per reports, this is going to be somewhere around 25 million in this particular financial year, right? So some more data with respect to rice here. So the production, if you look at the production, US rice output is some 7 million tons, India's output is some 150 million tons. US ranks 13th globally, far below major the Asian producers, right? Now, if you look at export and import of rice, so there is a trade balance. US exports 3 million ton and US imports 1.6. So you can see that US is a major exporter and not importer of rice. So whatever imports that go to the US, they have a very premium variety and that too of lesser value. So it cannot create any market distortion, right? So that is something that you need to take away from this particular slide, that the data suggest otherwise. Now, what is the composition of India's rice exports? So if you look at the composition of India's rice export, within that total basmati exports, we have 60.65 lakh tons, which of basmati that we export. Roughly last year we exported, which comes down to the value of roughly 5,944 million. This data is not important, but you should just understand that amongst that 150 million ton of exports, a huge significant portion consists of the aromatic variety of rices. Roughly 60.65 lakh tons of exports consist of the aromatic basmati variety, right? Now, according to the data of the Department of Agriculture, so earlier also I stated that last year our production was roughly the exports was roughly 22.5 million ton for 2025 this marketing year. This agency has projected that it will be somewhere around 25 million ton, right? Now, out of this, the US accounts for only 2.74, right? Out of this 25 million ton, US accounts for 2.74 lakh tons as per the data from India's Department of Commerce. Now, the real question, should we be worried about Trump's threat of imposing a tariff? So all this data, it clearly highlights that US is not even a major destination for India's rice exports. So let us just look at India's rice exports, why we should not be worried about any tariffs coming our way as far as rice is concerned, right? So which we have to understand the composition of India's rice exports, and how which countries we basically send, and that is very important from a prelims perspective also. So let us move to the next slide. Right. So if you look at the basmati exports, so this is the 2024, 25 and 25, 26 data parallelly. So you can see most of the countries where we export is the Middle East and then Africa. So Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, UAE, Yemen, right? US is roughly 6th in terms of exports of basmati, right? So that is a 6th major destination for exports of basmati. So a major chunk of basmati exports go to West Asia, to Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, United Arab Emirates being bigger markets than the United States, right? So that is something very important that you need to remember, right? Next slide. So in case of non-basmati rice, if you look at the data on non-basmati rice, right? So the biggest market for Indian grain is Africa, especially countries in western part of the continent like Benin, Togo, Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea and Senegal, right? So the US is practically non-existent as a market for non-basmati category, right? If you look at US, it comes down somewhere here. So it is non-existent as a market for the non-basmati category. So we really need not think much about US tariffs, right? Now since this is in news, so automatically your focus should also be on some of the important GI tagged rice which are not basmati, non-basmati, but GI tagged aromatic traditional rices. Some in eastern India include the Govind Bhog, right? So Govind Bhog, it is a short grain West Bengal rice which has sweet aroma, used in traditional sweets like kheer, etc. Tulai Panji, medium grain, North Bengal, mild aroma, heritage, it's a heritage rice. Katarni, medium slender, from Bihar, distinct aromatic, cooking premium variety, right? In north and northeast, we have the Joha rice, Assam Joha. It is basically a short grain, highly aromatic, multiple ecotypes are present. We have the Chakao, the black rice, medium grain, basically grown in Manipur, aromatic black rice rich in anthocyanins. It's very much in news. It was in news last year also. Now the Jeera Kalasa in southern India, short grain, Kerala, Wayanad region, aromatic, used in Malabari biryani. The Ganda Kalasa, short grain, Kerala, strong fragrance, traditional variety, right? In western and central India, we have the Vada Kolam, medium grain, Maharashtra, soft cooking premium table rice. The Musk Bhujji, the medium grain, it basically comes from the Kashmir Valley, highly aromatic and has a very high market value. So these are some of the rice varieties in India that have been given GI tag. It is very important from your exam perspective, and you should read more on them, right? So this completes our news. Let us move to the next topic. Okay, moving on to this very important article that featured in the Hindu today. So the context of this article was coming up with a plan on right to health, right? So a national convention on health rights in New Delhi is framing an agenda to strengthen the right to health, address privatization, ensure equitable healthcare financing and improve justice for patients and health workers in India. Now, if you notice the date today, it is the Human Rights Day, and also on 12th of December, we will be having the Universal Health Coverage Day, that will be on December of 12th. So this significant national gathering on public health is happening in the New Delhi, and the National Convention on Health Rights, it will basically offer a platform for health professionals, community leaders, the health activists to address and come up with understanding of India's major health challenges, and try to come up with a policy framework that will address these challenges, right? So let us proceed with this news, and our focus will be on right to health. What is the Supreme Court judgments with respect to right to health, how it is enshrined in our constitution, and those aspects. Now first we let us understand that what are the various concerns, right? What are the various concerns in our health system? So if you look at the health system, so the concern of privatization of public health is very imminent, as highlighted by various health activists. So there is an increasing privatization through PPP models of medical colleges, of public hospitals. So this further weakens the public health system, making healthcare unaffordable for the poor, right? Now if you look at the regulation side, so we have Clinical Establishments Acts of 2010, but we see that the implementation side is very weak. Now this leads to issues of overcharging, unnecessary procedures like C-section, normal delivery being done by C-section, because that will increase the time of stay at the hospital, right? Opaque pricing, violation of patient rights, right? And there is an issue of price regulation of drugs. 80% of the drugs are non-scheduled drugs, so the prices cannot be controlled. There is an issue of billing process by the hospitals, right? So all these issues are there, and other than that there are some systemic challenges that are a chronic feature of India's public health system. So India allocates roughly less than 2% of the union budget to the healthcare, and the per capita spending of $25, it is very less, and this leads to a very high out of pocket expenditures despite insurance schemes. Now although this the government claims that out of pocket expenditure in recent times has come down, yes indeed it has come down, but it is very high for people who cannot afford basic health care, and this majority of this out of pocket expenditure consists of prices they pay for medicine, right? So this convention will examine gap between insurance claims and actual ground realities, demands for increased government funding and reduced OOP burden, etc., etc., right? So these are some of the issues. Now let us come to this topic from a prelims perspective. So right to health. Now right to health in India, if you look at the constitutional position, so in fundamental rights, right to health has no explicit mentioning, it is an implicit recognition. So the constitution does not explicitly enumerate the right to health as a fundamental right. The Supreme Court has expanded the interpretation of Article 21 to include this right to health, right? So the Supreme Court has expanded this right to health to include various aspects of health, right to timely and adequate medical care, right? So this came up in the Parmanand Katara judgment, right, that anyone should not be, the Parmanand Katara versus Union of India 1989 judgment. So every doctor, whether public, private, is obligated to provide emergency care, right? Now right to emergency treatment, basically timely, adequate and emergency care, it is one and the same thing. Right to pollution free environment, very important, 2024, a judgment by the Supreme Court, M.K. Ranjit Singh versus Union of India. So we have right against adverse effects of climate change, and that right was recognized both under Article 14 and Article 21, because the poor often face double discrimination when it comes to the rights against climate change. So both Article 14 and 21, this particular judgment has highlighted that you have a right against adverse effects of climate change. right to human dignity in health care service delivery. So not just not just your right to health, you should have the healthcare service providers, they also should have human dignity, right? Some of the important judgments in this regard that the Supreme Court has come up is the Paschim Banga Khet Mazdoor Samiti, right? The Paschim Banga Khet Mazdoor Samiti. So this particular judgment, a 1996 judgment, which basically highlights that failure of state to provide timely treatment, it violates Article 21. Other than that, there was a 2014 judgment, Muhammad Ahmad versus NCT Delhi, which stated that state must provide expensive life-saving drugs in certain conditions. Other than these, major Supreme Court judgments in this regard, we have directive principles in the Constitution also, implicitly and some explicitly talking about right to health. It is enshrined under Article 38, social justice and minimizing inequalities including health inequalities. Article 39E F, health of workers, children, youth must be protected. Article 41, public assistance in sickness and disability. 42, humane conditions of work and maternity relief. Article 47, duty of state to raise the level of nutrition and standard of living and improve public health. So most explicit recognition you can see in directive principles, but unlike fundamental rights, the directive principles cannot be directly enforced. They are non-justiciable rights unless the government comes up with a policy. Now, what is the stand of the government so far? So far we don't have any law except for Rajasthan Health Act. So the Rajasthan Health Act, it came somewhere around 2023, and with this Rajasthan became the sole state in India which has a dedicated health act, means it recognizes right to health under a statute of the state, right? So the problem with directive principles is it is non-justiciable, although the courts have been trying to read these directives with fundamental rights under Article 21, 14, etc., etc., right, to ensure that these are positive obligations on the side of the government. But so far there is the focus of the government is more on covering the population through insurance, and right to health in Indian society still is some it is a distant dream. Right. So this is what you need to take away from this article. Let us move to the last article of the day. Okay, so moving on to the next and the last topic. So article again came on the special intensive revision that is happening, and with the recent hearings in the Supreme Court, the frequency of articles again have intensified. So we are going to understand again the SIR from a prelims perspective this time. So deep cleaning of the electoral rolls, right? So what is the context? The Election Commission of India special intensive revision, it seeks to clean electoral rolls by removing duplicates and outdated entries while ensuring eligible citizens are included. This has sparked a debate over legality, scope and safeguards, and that debate is going on and on in the Supreme Court. Now let us move to the core topic, right? Now, what does the article talk about? So the article talks about the electoral roll as the foundation to conducting elections, and in fact Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, while introducing the Representation of People's Bill, which later become the Representation of People Act, which covers of 1950, which covers the process and procedure for preparation of roll, and that is the legal mandate for preparation of roll, it emphasized that electoral roll preparation is condition precedent, means first condition for elections. And Under the constitution, the superintendent's direction and control of electoral roll rests exclusively with the Election Commission of India, and periodic revisions, both intensive or summary, are necessary to maintain accuracy, completeness and credibility. Right. So we have two types of revisions. It is intensive revision. It happens it happens in a decade or two. Last time intensive revision happened in India in 2003-4, right? And summary revisions is something that the Election Commission carries year on year in a particular constituency or just before elections to ensure that people who have died or migrated, they are removed from the list and new voters are included. Right. So let us move to the next slide here. Right. So what is SIR? So special intensive revision, it is a one-time full-scale verification of the electors. Right. So it is a one-time ground-up exercise to verify and update the electoral roll using door-to-door verification. The Election Commission will appoint various BLOs who will go into respective districts, go door to door, or are designated places there where BLOs can meet with people. You have to submit your enumeration forms, right, to them, and the objective is voter identity, clean and update electoral rolls, remove duplicate entries, ensure only eligible citizens remain. Means there was a concern, there is in recent times there are concerns about many people who are not Indian citizens are on our electoral rolls, and that looking into those concerns, the Election Commission has basically taken this step. Now, what is the core process here? Door-to-door verification. Every elector field teams, they physically go check voter details. Digital workflows are used. So, Election Commission is using ECI net, Election Commission Integrated Network, on which the enumeration forms can be uploaded. So, a digital workflow is being created. So, all those steps are being taken care to ensure that the electoral roll comes out clean. Now, what is SIR versus routine summary revision? So, SIR is very exhaustive, it is ground up revision, it is intensive in nature, right? Summary revisions and SIR happens once in a decade or two. Summary revisions, they are routine, yearly and limited corrections. So, SIR's mandate is basically to target the accuracy at the household level. So, most accurate result you will get is through special intensive revision, and that is what the objective of the Election Commission here is. Now, let us understand this topic from a prelims perspective. What is the Election Commission's mandate, the constitutional and legal mandate to carry out this SIR, right? So, the first and foremost is Article 324, right. So, Article 324 Constitution of India vests Election Commission with plenary powers. What are plenary powers? Very exhaustive powers, right. In fact, landmark judgment of the Supreme Court, Mohinder Singh Gill, right. So, I am talking about Mohinder Singh Gill. Right. So, this particular judgment of the Supreme Court, it highlighted that Election Commission under 324 has reservoir of powers, which basically means that say anything is not written but comes under the mandate of Article 324, anything that is some act of the Election Commission which is within the mandate of superintendent's direction and control of elections, but it is not explicitly written in law, that is the Representation of People Act and 1950 and 51, then can the Election Commission do that? Yes, it can. So, 324 consists of plenary powers, residuary powers, but wherever there is a law that curtails the discretion of the Election Commission. So, that is something that you need to remember, right. So, this includes overseeing the preparation and revision of electoral rolls, right. We have Article 326 of the Constitution of India. So, it basically enshrines the principle of universal adult franchise, mandating that elections to the Lok Sabha, state assemblies, it basically Article 326 established that who can vote, and Article 324, it empowers ECI to ensure that this right is realized through fair electoral process. So 326 lists down who can vote, and 324 basically gives ECI the power to ensure that this right is realized through fair electoral roll management. Right. So these are two important constitutional mandates. Let us come to some statutory mandate. Right. So to come more clearer, so key provisions of Representation of People Act 1950 that allow for such a intensive revision. So section 15 of RPA Act, we are discussing RPA 1950 here, right. So section 15 of RPA Act 1950, it calls for roles for each constituency under the supervision of an electoral registration officer in charge. Section 21(2), it's not 1, section 21(2), it calls for annual revision of rolls. Cutoff date usually is taken as 1st January as qualifying date. If no revision happens, then existing roll will continue with updates. Section 21 clause 3, this is the most explicit section which allows for SIR. So you have to remember this for your prelims exam. Particularly if UPSC is asking, it will ask not very specifically that 21(3) kya, but it might ask about that, okay, the mandate is under Representation of People Act 1950-51, but still if you can remember, remember. So what does 21(3), it says that special revision anytime ordered by the ECI, reasons must be recorded, right. But one important thing that you need to read in section 21(3) that became controversial in Bihar, because section 21(3) talks of that any part of state or constituency, which basically means that you can do such an SIR in any part of state or a constituency for recorded reasons. What could be recorded is, say there is a 200-300% rise in voter additions in last 1 year in that constituency. So naturally the election commission has to look into it whether they are genuine voters, right. So you have to record whatever reasons, but you cannot do it for an entire state. It says any part of state or constituency. To do it for a particular entire state, there is no legal mandate under 1950, and that is why the election commission named it as special intensive revision, not intensive revision, right. Also section 23 and 24, it talks about claims and objections. So if your name is deleted, you can go through the DM, that is the chief electoral officer, and then the chief electoral officer to get your name included if your name is deleted. So this is the legal mandate under RPA 1950, right. Now coming to some of the criticisms that is happening in this particular issue. So we have understood the mandate for SIR. Now what are the criticisms? The first and foremost criticism in this SIR issue is that the election commission is trying to check the citizenship status of people. Now citizenship status, as per the constitution, it is regulated. It is under article 5 to 11, and if any ministry has the power to check or give directions to check your citizenship status, it is the Ministry of Home Affairs, not the election commission. So the election commissions demand last time in Bihar SIR that they will not accept Aadhaar card as a proof of your identity, because it is not a document that proves your citizenship. Did not fall out well in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court finally ordered the election commission that you should not be checking citizenship status, proof of identity is enough, right. So this is very important, and also it becomes very important because in past there have been Supreme Court judgments in this matter. So one of the judgments of the Supreme Court, the court observed that whenever a person's name enters the electoral roll, it has to be assumed that the then electoral officer must have undertaken proper procedural checks before entering his name. So if the election commission is deleting any particular name, it has to either prove that the person is not a citizen of India, or if he is not able to show the document, the needed document to prove his citizenship, the election commission has to take it as a bona fide case. Now, so far after the Bihar election, after the Bihar election results and the SIR results, there have been very few cases which have come out to challenge their deletions. No non-genuine cases are there, right? But that is one of the criticisms of this entire exercise, that election commission has tried to check the citizenship status of people, right? The second problem is the grandfathering of data. Right. So the election commission has come up with this logic that, okay, last time we have conducted SIR in 2003. So every person who is on the electoral roll before 2003, he will have to just prove his identification. Every person who came on the list after 2003, he will have to show both proof of identification and your proof of citizenship. That was the case in Bihar. Now, for other states SIR, the election commission has let go of that requirement, but this arbitrary salvaging of 2003 data, it was argued in the court as it goes against Article 14. Why it goes against Article 14? Because there is intensive revision happening, there is summary revision happening, and there is no difference in the intensity of a intensive revision and a summary revision. Summary revision happens every year, right? So if you have conducted summary revision after 2003, then how is the sanctity of those rolls dubious or doubtful in your mind, and why are you relying only on the 2003 data, right? So these are some of the pertinent questions. Another question was regarding the section 21(3). I stated that, okay, it allows for SIR, it allows for intensive revision in constituency part of state, but not the entire state. Therefore, ECI came up with this name, special intensive revision. So legal sanctity is also something that the Supreme Court is going to check. So this is a very important issue from your prelims perspective. You should know it from a legal aspect rather than going into the political news. With this DNA session comes to an end. We will meet next time. Thank you.